Anyway, we got a special guest here on Rewind this morning, along with Sports Director Jeff Blankman, Jeff Honnold. I'm John Ryan. Terry Kasperbauer, of course, you might know him as the longtime assistant basketball coach and coach for pretty much every single sport at Carroll High, right, Terry?
There's been a few of them, yeah.
Is there a sport you didn't coach there?
Well, I was a head assistant baseball, basketball, and football at one time. So
okay,
but I haven't coached track, but I help out all the track.
You ever coached frisbee golf or anything like that?
No.
Golf, soccer, and tennis, maybe the only ones that you haven't had a hand on?
I haven't had a chance to do that. Maybe ran out of time someplace in there.
But you're in here this morning because your team, when you were at college, 1976 team at Dakota State College, which is in Madison, South Dakota. I know it well. I had two brothers and a sister that both graduated from that college. You were part of the football program there, and of course, individually, you were put in the Hall of Fame about 8 years ago, but you went in as a team this last Saturday. How special was that?
That was very special. Obviously, 43 years later, stories get better. It's amazing how good we really were. Even, we obviously had been good to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. And as one of the captains, it was really nice because got to be a part of something special with guys you had a lot of fun with a long time ago.
Yeah, when you think back, when you got together, was it just like time just didn't happen?
That's right. It's amazing. We talk about it, too. When we get together, feels like we just were together yesterday. We did have 3 years ago, we were honored at halftime of the homecoming game, and some of the guys were back for that. So I had seen some of them 3 years ago, but there are a lot of them. It's been maybe 43 years since I'd seen them. So.
Really? So you didn't stay in contact with all of them, a few of them?
Kept in contact, but we didn't always see each other. Schedules don't work out, families, kids have something going on. So we had about, I think, between 25 and 30 guys came back for it, so it was pretty nice.
What's the first thing you guys talk about when you get together?
Stories about...
Can we tell the stories on the air?
Well, yeah.
See, he's thinking of an answer now.
Veteran broadcaster there.
Yeah. So when I went up there, it was actually we have individuals that also get inducted, and we had three captains my senior year. Two of us had already been inducted individually to the Hall of Fame. The third one was getting inducted this last weekend also, and he asked the two of us to introduce him. So we got to tell stories as we're introducing him. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite stories about him is he came from Baltic, South Dakota. Now, if you know where Baltic, South Dakota is, about 30 miles from Madison. And I made a comment that he proved what a scholar athlete he was by recruiting him because he finished in the top 20 of his class at Baltic. But then you had to realize there were only 18 in his class of 1973. So that was fun to give him a little hard time. And then as a team, there's so many stories, but the one the captains thought we were also going to speak for the team when that got introduced, but for whatever reason, the AD decided to bypass that. So I had a speech ready for the team also. And the one story I was going to tell is our first game, we're at Orange City playing Northwestern, who, was then and still is a football power in the NAIA. And we go down there, and we're feeling pretty confident that we're going to be fairly good, but there were only two seniors on the team, myself and one of the running backs. And so we come out of the huddle very first play of the game. So we have a senior and a freshman in the backfield behind me. And by this time, because I've been the quarterback for 3.5 years, I've got the ability to, coach has got enough confidence in me, said, we've got an audibleized system. And back in the 70s, that was...
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we come out the first play, and of course, Northwestern, everybody knows the senior's going to get the football, so I'm thinking I'm going to show everybody I'm going to audibilize. And so I audible into a play where I fake to the senior and give to the freshman, not realizing the freshman's just nervous as all get out. And he said later, I don't even remember feeling the ball or anything in my hand. Of course, he fumbles. I don't even think he got hit. He was just so nervous. He fumbles, and they recover at our 12-yard line. Very first play of the season. Well, fortunately, the defense held. We go on and beat them, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. We were overcome that first down of the season fumble, and we go on and beat them.
Now, when is the next time the freshman touched the ball after that?
We waited a few series before he got it. But,
I was going to say, did you get a chance to audible the rest of that game?
Yeah. And so I publicly apologized to him Saturday because he did come back, and ironically, both of those backs were from Randolph, Massachusetts.
Really?
Went to the same high school. They were 3 years apart, and hardly knew each other because it was a big high school. But they came from Randolph, and But he ended up being a pretty good player himself by the time he was a junior and senior.
Now, how did you wind up at Dakota State? Because, I mean, obviously you graduated here in Kemper, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What year was that? That was
73.
73.
A fellow by the name of Joel Swisher, and if you're in South Dakota in the 70s, that was a big name. His dad, Clark Swisher, was a big name in South Dakota. In fact, the football field up at Aberdeen Northern State College is named after Clark Swisher. Well, Joel Swisher was about 30-year-old first-time head coach. He just gotten the job. It was his first year, and he was recruiting like crazy. And I can still remember him coming several times to my house down on Whitney Street and sitting around the table. We had, at that time, 9 kids.
I was going to say, you with the whole army of Kasperbauer kids.
And just actually fitting right in like he was one of the kids, and then showing up in the spring at a track meet in Sac City. So I thought, you know what, this guy must want me pretty bad. And found out years later, Dan Bach was the head football coach, and Dan told me years later that the two of them had been in touch a lot during that time, which I didn't know. And he was the only person I knew when I got to Madison, South Dakota. Obviously, was Joel Swisher. In fact, first time I was in Madison, South Dakota was the day before our first football practice. I never even visited the campus.
You'd never even looked at the campus.
I was like, you know what? That's far enough away. I don't want to go where everybody's going. You know, at that time, everybody was going to BV or Iowa State, you know, like they are now. It's like, I want to go somewhere where I'm just kind of unknown.
Yeah, that is very cool. It's a little unlike recruiting these days.
No, it really is, yeah.
You weren't getting constant daily messages and things like that.
You know, you didn't go on, I made a couple of trips out of the places, but it wasn't like it is now where you got the official visits and all that goes on with it.
So did he only recruit you out of the family, or was he trying to recruit some of the brothers too?
You know what? I don't know how many. I'm the oldest of 10, and then 5 girls came after me.
Okay.
So by the time the next boy came, I was
long
gone. So the bottom 4 are boys. So
let's talk about that 76 team. You guys put up some huge numbers. I mean, you had, what was it, 2 games with 5 touchdowns?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking 1976, offenses were not that wide open then.
No,
it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
We ran the Delaware wing tee, which
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. Ironically, when I came back to Carroll and coached under Terry Ballman, he ran a very similar offense, but we ran the slot tee. So it was basically, it was amazing because it's a lot of the same plays out of it. But,
so you knew it forward and backwards.
It was really weird that. I think one of the assistant coaches 8 years ago when I went into the Hall of Fame said it best, said he wasn't the fastest and he didn't have the strongest arm, but I knew the plays and I knew how to throw the ball so that guys could catch it. So play action passing was a lot of it. If I had to drop back and pass, I wasn't going to throw it 60 yards like kids could today.
What do you think made this team so special?
I think when the head coach put in there the cohesiveness of it and the leadership. We had myself and 2 other senior captains that, for whatever reason, the rest of the players really bonded around us and I think the fact that the 2 of us on offense had been starters for this was our 4th year. The kids understood that we'd been around and respected what we had to bring to the team and to the field and what we had to say too.
So you guys, I mean, literally with this team, like I said, you walked onto campus, you had practice the next day. You had never been there before. You didn't know anybody you were going to be playing with. How long did it take you guys to actually bond, or were you just like all thrown in the same situation?
Back then there were 3 days, so you had a lot of time to bond.
3 a day.
3 a days, yes.
And how much of that was film?
None.
None.
That was all on the field. Film sessions were, other than after the game, we didn't watch hardly any film back then. You know, you didn't have huddle, you didn't have anything now like you have now that you can go watch it on. And so it was football. And I can still remember, I couldn't wait till I got to be a junior and senior and I could do this, but 5:45, 6 o'clock every morning, they had captains or somebody coming around with bells and all kinds of gadgets to get everybody out of bed. And you'd come in sleepy-eyed, go to breakfast and go practice, and then you'd practice till 10:30, and you go eat lunch and maybe grab a quick nap, and you're back out there again at 1 or 1:30, a couple hours, and go supper, and then you're back out again at 6.
Wow.
And then you got the playbook, as a freshman especially. I can remember in 1973, I was just, every time that I was if I wasn't at practice or sleeping, I didn't take many naps because it was like, I need to get this playbook. When I went in, there were 5 quarterbacks. my freshman year.
And how soon before you gained playing time?
I got here and there, but about the fifth game of the season, starting quarterback had been struggling, and we were out. I still remember we were out at in Rapid City, South Dakota, playing South Dakota Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And we were down at halftime, and the coach made a change at halftime. And fortunately, we came back and won a high-scoring affair and kept me in, and I had it the rest of my time up there.
You talked about there's only 3 seniors by the time you were finished. I'm assuming you had a bigger freshman class than that, and it just whittled down. That was Coach's first. Was that his first class then coming in?
Yeah, I think we actually had 3 captains, but 6 seniors my senior year. But we started out, I believe, we kind of thought we had between 45 and 50 freshmen that came in. We had close to 100 kids that first fall camp, and with 3 days, you weed them out pretty fast. I mean, I told you we had 5 quarterbacks, and after we went through the first sessions of throwing and all that, I'm thinking I might be 5th team right now because some of these guys, we had a kid, left-handed quarterback, and still seeing him throw, and he threw so hard. I can still remember receivers, ball going through their hands and sticking right to their face mask because he just threw it so hard. And a split end that was at the reunion, who was a freshman when I was a senior, said he remembers telling the other receivers how my passes were the easiest ones to catch. I just had a way of being able to pass. That's because I couldn't throw it 100 miles an hour like that. That's why.
You threw the changeup. He threw the fastball.
Yeah.
What was that when you think back at that season? What was the big moment, the big win that you guys had, the signature win?
Well, the Northwestern one was pretty big, but then conference-wise, we played Huron about the 3rd or 4th game of the year, and we were both ranked in the top 15, and we held on and beat them, and then. We got to the end of the season, and our last game of the year, we got to go to Wayne, Nebraska, to play Wayne State, who's Division II now NCAA. Back then, they were Division III, and the year before, they had just put a whooping on us at our homecoming. Like it was 45-14, and I swear it was 45-7. I don't remember how we got to 14, but anyway, so we're getting ready to play at Wayne State, and they have a couple All-American defensive ends, and they have a defense that shifts and. You never know what defense they're going to come out with. So our head coach, who was also the offensive coordinator, great offensive mind. Still, today, I consider him one of maybe the first or second, one of the top 2 or 3 smartest coaches I've ever been around. He comes up with a plan that we're going to call every play at the line of scrimmage. And today now nobody huddles, and so that's common. Right. But back then, everybody huddled. You had a play call, and you came up. So. All I did in the huddle is I gave the formation. And they even changed up our formation. But I would call what strong side we were going to play, what formation we were going to have. And then when I got to the line, I had a choice of 3, 4, 5 different plays I could call based on what Wayne State defense was. And so we called every play at the line. I think back to the very first play of the season when I got the audible one time and we fumbled it. So now we're calling now 10th game, we're calling every play at the line. And it ended up, we beat Wayne State 24-14, which it vaulted us. It put us in the top 10 of the final poll.
I would say because in '76 that had to be very cutting edge kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not many people had to be doing that.
That's what I say. He was ahead of his time. He'd have been a heck of a coach. Now, unfortunately, he had a heart attack back in 2000 and died at I think he was only like 52, 53 years old.
Terry, what was it like, the emotion of going through the ceremony this past weekend? Or does it still feel pretty special?
Yeah, it does. And it was nice that got to induct another one of our players. And then one of the other players was a sophomore on that team that got inducted. And then just to see everybody. And the unbelievable thing is there are still a couple people that live in Madison that never left. One played football. And the other 2 that we always get together with played baseball. They didn't play football, but they host parties for all of us. And one was a senior when I was a freshman, so he wasn't even around when most of these guys were on the football team. But he still, it's a close, smaller. It was a smaller school at the time, and everybody. It's a really close knit feeling, and we stayed in touch. The 2 kids from Randolph, Massachusetts, I stay in touch with. I still consider the senior, especially, one of my best friends. We talk. In fact, we were texting this morning before I even came out here, talking about if we're going to come back for homecoming in September, because it's always such a great time.
And I remember talking to Floyd Foreman from Manning a couple of years ago, and Floyd, not a big guy. I think he was talking about the difference. When he played college football, I think he said he was a lineman.
Yeah.
I mean, Floyd, a lineman, first of all. And, he talked about they didn't really throw weights too much or lift weights at all, and you guys probably the same deal.
Yeah. In fact, the kid that got inducted this weekend, he came out of Baltic as a quarterback and said the first practice he's playing offensive tackle. And then his senior year, he started at linebacker, 180 pounds.
Yeah.
180-pound linebacker.
It's the size and the speed of the game, I think, has just been amazing.
It's crazy.
But anyway, a lot of fun. Do you guys have film from back then? Did you get together and watch any of that?
No, we didn't. It's funny because a few years ago, my freshman year, our team also got inducted to the Hall of Fame, and somebody did have film from that year, but nobody had film from this year. What we did have is one of the assistant coaches on that team came back, and he had kept a binder of information, and he gave me a letter that I supposedly, evidently, wrote to all the players before the season started as the captain, telling them, get ready, blah, blah, blah. And I have no recollection of doing this, writing this letter.
Really some good Newt Rockney stuff.
Yeah, and we always have a great time, and it's always fun, but I can tell you this, that recovery time does take longer now than it did. Every time we go back, it's a good thing you didn't have me yesterday. I don't know how alert I would have been.
Exactly. Well, congratulations on that. It had to be a lot of fun catching up with everybody, and we love hearing the stories.
Yeah,
so.
Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me in.
I know you're going to New York. Be careful and watch out for those line drive foul balls.
No kidding, yeah. Thanks.
Terry Kasperbauer joining us here this morning on KCIM Sports Rewind. We're back with more coming.